My name is Helen Harrington. I am 72 years old, and for most of my life, I believed that family meant safety. My husband, Walter, and I built our lives around that belief. We raised 3 children in a Victorian house on Cedar Falls, a place we thought we would never leave. Our oldest, Michael, grew into a hardworking man who ran a furniture shop. Our youngest, Rachel, married an engineer and moved to Australia. And our middle child, David, gave his life and service to this country. A folded flag rests in a wooden case on our mantel, the kind of reminder that never lets you forget what you have lost. Walter kept the house standing with his own hands, fixing shingles, mending fences, and carving small birds for our grandchildren long before they were born. I tended the garden and filled the house with quilts I sewed from scraps of fabric. We built something solid and steady, but life has a way of testing even the strongest foundations. When Walter fell from a ladder one spring morning, everything changed. A broken hip, a long hospital stay, and medical bills we could not pay swallowed the savings we had. Insurance covered some, but not nearly enough. At the same time, Michael came to us desperate. His workshop was close to foreclosure, and his wife, Vanessa, feared the embarrassment of losing their home. Faced with a choice, we did what parents do. We gave up our own house to save his. I packed away my quilts. Walter boxed up his tools, and together we whispered to each other, "We will manage. We always have." I thought our sacrifice would keep our family together. I had no idea it would lead us to betrayal. When we moved into Michael's suburban home, I told myself it was only temporary. The driveway looked neat and new, the hedges trimmed into sharp lines. It did not feel like the garden we had left behind. But I tried to smile. Michael hugged me tightly, whispering that everything would be fine. Then I saw Vanessa in the doorway. Her smile was polite, but her eyes told a different story. She adjusted Ella's hair, straightened Caleb's shirt, and ushered us in as though we were unexpected guests rather than family. At first, there were sweet moments. Ella ran into my lap each night, demanding another bedtime story. I carried my worn picture books in my suitcase just for her. Caleb admired the little wooden bird Walter carved and asked, "Grandpa, can you teach me?" Those moments lit up my heart. I clung to them like proof that our sacrifice had meaning. But shadows crept in quickly. Vanessa moved my favorite armchair into a corner of the den as if it were in her way. She placed Walter's toolbox behind stacks of boxes in the garage where he could not reach it without asking. At dinner, she reminded us gently but sharply about lowering our salt or skipping dessert, though everyone else ate freely. Walter started apologizing for everything. "I'll stay out of the way," he would say when he reached for tools or offered to fix something. He stopped spending time in the garage altogether. I noticed how Vanessa lingered at the hallway when I read to the children, watching but never joining in. Our world had shrunk to one spare room, a small drawer in the kitchen, and borrowed corners. To the grandchildren, we were still Grandma and Grandpa. To Vanessa, we were obligations, tucked into the edges of her home. The first real crack appeared one night when Walter woke for a glass of water. The hallway rug, the one Vanessa had placed only days before, slipped beneath his foot. I heard the crash and ran from our room, heart pounding. Walter lay on the floor, groaning, clutching his hip. For a moment, I thought we were back in the hospital again. Thankfully, nothing was broken, but the fright lingered. In the morning, Vanessa offered a smile that felt thin and rehearsed. "Maybe it's safer if he doesn't walk alone at night," she suggested. Her words dripped with concern, but I heard the sharpness beneath them. A week later, she arranged for a home safety assessment. A nurse with a clipboard walked through the rooms, checking lights and bathroom rails as if we were already patients in a facility. I stood by quietly, but when the report came back, I felt my chest tighten. Adult diapers for Walter, reduced water intake, closer supervision of daily routines. Michael muttered that it was only precaution. Yet, I saw how quickly Vanessa nodded as if she had been waiting for confirmation of our weakness. After that, meals grew quieter. I kept my voice soft, careful not to invite more judgment. Walter apologized for needing help with small tasks. He stopped entering the garage entirely. the toolbox now a relic hidden behind bins. The children noticed. One night, Ella asked her mother, "Why do you make that face when Grandma hugs me?" Caleb clung tighter to Walter's hand at bedtime, unwilling to let go. Children see truths adults try to hide. That night, I lay awake, tears soaking my pillow. It was not the fall that broke me, but the realization that in our son's home, we were no longer parents, we were burdens. It happened on a heavy July evening. I was carrying folded laundry back to our room when I heard voices drifting through the vent above the hallway. I froze. The tone was sharp, clipped Vanessa. Then Michael's deeper voice answered, hesitant. I set the basket down and motioned for Walter to join me. We leaned close, barely breathing as their words traveled through the thin walls. Vanessa spoke first. "It's not just about space, Michael. They can't manage themselves anymore. If we get a doctor to sign off, we can petition for guardianship. Once it's approved, I'll handle their finances, pensions, savings, all of it. It will be better for everyone." My hands trembled. Guardianship, control, stripped of our independence, made wards in our own son's house. Michael's reply came low and uncertain. "I don't know, Vanessa. They've been through so much. Ella loves her bedtime stories. Caleb follows Dad everywhere. How would they understand if we suddenly took over?" For a moment, hope flickered, but then Vanessa's words cut through like glass. "Children adapt. This is about our future, not their pride." I pressed a hand to my mouth, my knees weak. Walter steadied me with a trembling arm. Every fear we had swallowed now stood in the open. This was no misunderstanding. It was a plan. Our son's silence, his unwillingness to stop her, was its own kind of betrayal. That night, sitting in our small room, I stared at the packed laundry basket beside the bed. Buddy, our golden retriever, rested his head on Walter's feet, sensing our unrest. Walter whispered, "If we stay, they will take everything, not just money, Helen. They will take us." I nodded, tears falling freely. In that moment, I knew our only choice was to leave. The next morning, I woke with a determination I had not felt in months. Betrayal has a way of clearing the fog. Walter and I sat on the edge of our bed, speaking in whispers. We had to leave. We could not wait for paperwork and court orders to strip us of who we were. We still had a few resources, the envelope of cash from the jewelry I sold, Walter's modest veteran stipend, and enough grit to start again. I pulled out stationery and wrote letters to Ella and Caleb. In Ella, I pressed a flower from my old garden, telling her that whenever she missed me, she could hold it and remember bedtime stories. For Caleb, I tucked in a sketch of a bird, promising that one day I would teach him how to carve his own. Walter chose 3 tools to pack: a pocket K-knife, a hammer, and a measuring tape. He said those tools had built a life once, and they could help us build again. Into one suitcase, we placed photo albums, a quilt square, and Buddy's leash. Everything else we left behind. At night, we practiced moving silently. We waited until the dishwasher stopped humming, until Michael's heavy steps faded upstairs, until Vanessa's laugh grew quiet behind the closed bedroom door. Then we rehearsed our path through the hall, past the kitchen, out the front door. Walter gripped my hand and whispered, "I would rather sleep on cold streets than watch them declare you incompetent." I looked at him and answered, "We are not weak, Walter. We are not finished. We are still us." In that vow, the plan became more than escape. It became a fight for dignity. The night we left was moonless, the streets covered in damp silence after a summer rain. Walter and I waited until the house grew still. I slipped on my cardigan, tucked the letters for the children into the drawer of the nightstand, and touched the quilt folded at the foot of the bed one last time. Walter lifted the suitcase carefully, making sure it did not scrape against the floor. Buddy padded close beside us, tail wagging once before I hushed him with a gentle pat. Every creak of the floorboards felt like a shout. My heart pounded so loudly I was certain Vanessa would wake. In the kitchen, Walter set our house key on the counter. It was our final gesture, a silent declaration. We were not thieves, not runaways. We were leaving because we had to. He looked at me, eyes filled with both fear and resolve. "Let's go." he whispered. We stepped into the night, the cool air rushing over us like freedom itself. We hurried down the street, shoes splashing in shallow puddles, not daring to look back until we reached the corner. I turned once. The glow of the windows seemed distant already, a place that was never truly ours. At the bus station, the fluorescent lights flickered above rows of cracked plastic seats. We bought 2 one-way tickets to anywhere leaving before dawn. The clerk barely glanced at us, sliding the tickets across the counter. We sat shoulder to shoulder, exhaustion etched into every line of our faces. Buddy curled at our feet. Walter broke the silence. We are not homeless, Helen. We are houseless. There's a difference. I leaned my head on his shoulder, clutching the leash tightly. When the bus arrived, brakes hissing, doors opening with a groan, we climbed aboard. With every mile, the city shrank behind us, and for the first time in months, I breathed without fear. By dawn, the bus rolled into a small junction town. Most passengers scattered quickly, but Walter, Buddy, and I stepped off slowly, our suitcase thumping against the pavement. My legs ached, and my eyes burned from a night without sleep. Across the street, a neon sign flickered above a diner, promising coffee and eggs. We crossed over, pulled by the glow of warm light in the windows. The bell above the door jingled, and a woman behind the counter looked up. Her name tag read Maria. She had tired eyes, but a kind smile. Without asking, she poured us coffee and slid a plate of toast across the counter. On the house, she said softly. I wanted to refuse, but the kindness broke me. Tears welled, and I could only whisper, "Thank you." We sat for hours sipping coffee. Buddy curled beneath our booth. Maria did not cry. She just let us be, which was its own kind of mercy. Later that morning, the door opened again, and a man in a trucker's cap greeted Maria by name. His presence filled the room, broad shoulders, weathered face, steady eyes. He noticed us and asked quietly if we were traveling through. His name was Frank Dalton, a widowed veteran who ran long-haul routes, but kept a small apartment in a nearby town called Millbrook. Walter explained cautiously that we were looking for somewhere simple, a place we could live without being a burden. Frank listened, nodding slowly. Then he said, "Millbrook doesn't care where you came from, only that you show up." By evening, Frank offered us a ride. I hesitated, but Maria gave me a reassuring nod. We climbed into his truck, but he nestled between our feet, and the road stretched before us. For the first time in months, I felt hope carried not by family, but by strangers who chose kindness. Millbrook was a town you could almost miss if you blinked while driving through. One main street, a handful of shops, and a diner that seemed to be its heartbeat. Frank parked his truck in front of it and walked us inside. The owner, Dorothy May, was a woman in her 60s with silver curls pinned back in a laugh that echoed even before she spoke. Frank explained who we were in a few simple words. Dorothy looked us over, eyes sharp but not unkind, then asked, "Can you bake?" I nodded. She pointed at Walter. "You know your way around a hammer." He grinned faintly and said, "Yes." She clapped her hands. "Well, I've been praying for help. Looks like God sent me too." Within days, Walter was repairing booze, oiling hinges, and repainting the front trim. I woke before sunrise to roll dough and fill the kitchen with the scent of pies, apple, peach, cherry. By noon, plates were empty, and townsfolk asked for more. Dorothy gave us the modest apartment above the diner, small but ours. Buddy stretched out near the front door every day, greeting customers as though he owned the place. Children bent down to pet him on their way to school, and soon he became Millbrook's unofficial therapy dog. Slowly, we became part of the town's fabric. I joined a quilting circle at the library, trading scraps of fabric and stories. Walter spent afternoons with Samuel Ross, another retired craftsman, carving wooden toys to sell at the Saturday market. People greeted us not as outsiders, but as neighbors. For the first time in months, I no longer felt pied. I felt needed. Walter was not a burden. He was a man fixing what was broken. And I was Helen again. Not just someone's grandmother, not someone's responsibility. I was myself. The snow was falling hard the night Michael found us. Millbrook had shut down early, and the diner's windows glowed against the storm. Walter and I were wiping down tables, ready to close when the bell over the door jingled. I looked up, expecting Frank or Dorothy. Instead, there stood my son. His coat was dusted white, his face drawn and older than I remembered. For a moment, all I could do was grip the rag in my hand as my heart pounded. Michael removed his gloves slowly, stalling. "Mom, Dad," his voice cracked. "I had to find you." Walter stayed silent, jaw clenched. I motioned for Michael to sit. He lowered himself onto a chair, eyes moving around the cozy diner that had become our home. Finally, words poured out. He admitted Vanessa had pushed hard after we left, telling neighbors we were unstable, filing paperwork to prove it. And he confessed his worst sin. He had stayed silent. He had let her speak for him. "I knew it was wrong," he said, voice breaking. "But I was afraid. Afraid to fight her. Afraid to lose everything. She even hid Rachel's letters so you wouldn't know she still wrote. I let it happen. And my kids, your grandkids, they've been crying for you." Ella asks for bedtime stories. Caleb still keeps the bird carving on his nightstand, his head dropped into his hands. "I don't deserve forgiveness, but I can't let them grow up thinking you abandoned them." The room was quiet except for the wind rattling the windows. I felt tears burning, but my voice stayed steady. "You broke my heart, Michael. You stood by while she planned to erase us, but you came, and that matters." Walter finally spoke low but firm. "It is not forgiveness yet, but it is a beginning." In that storm, a fragile door cracked open. Thanksgiving came with the smell of roasted turkey drifting through Dorothy May's diner. Tables were pushed together, covered with mismatched claws, and crowded with bowls of mashed potatoes, casseroles, and pies I had baked at dawn. Walter sat at the center with Caleb, leaning against his arm, while Ella clung to my hand. "I knew you'd come back," she whispered, pressing her cheek into my shoulder. My heart ached, but it was the sweetest ache I had felt in a long time. Michael served plates quietly, his movements careful, as though each gesture was an apology. He had left Vanessa and moved with the children near Millbrook. He was starting over, not because we demanded it, but because he finally understood that a family built on lies cannot stand. Around us gathered the people who had become our new family: Frank, Dorothy, Maria, Samuel. They laughed and passed dishes, filling the room with a warmth that made the scars of the past feel less sharp. As the evening settled, I looked around the crowded diner and felt something I had thought was gone forever. Peace. We had lost the house Walter and I built, lost trust in the son we sacrificed everything for, and walked away from the life we thought we knew. But here, surrounded by both blood and chosen family, I realized what mattered most had survived: dignity, love, the courage to begin again. I leaned close to Walter and whispered, "Sometimes we lose everything we thought mattered, only to find what truly does." He squeezed my hand, eyes shining in the candlelight. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who might need hope. Tell me in the comments where you are watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. And don't forget to like and subscribe to The Art of Revenge for more stories of resilience, truth, and redemption.